Prologue, the Midnight Lullaby. The parlor stood empty under a sickle moon sky, its pastel walls dulled by a layer of dust and neglect. Midnight sign flickered above the door, its neon letters buzzing in the oppressive silence. Inside, half-melted ice cream cones sat abandoned on the polished counter, their creamy peaks drooping like wilting flowers in a glass grave. A single record player in the corner spun a warped vinyl, its needle dragging through a lullaby so soft it might have been a whisper. Drops of water pattered against the door's stained glass window, as though the sky itself mourned what transpired here. The air smelled of spoiled cream and something more corrosive, a hint of something metallic that clung to the back of your throat. Shadows pooled in the corners, stretching toward the center of the room as the lullaby looped again, each note vibrating through the floorboards with a haunting insistence. No electricity coursed through the flickering bulbs overhead. Instead, a single lantern perched by the counter cast a halo of sickly yellow light over the display cases. Within, rows of cones and sundaes stood frozen in time, jagged splashes of red syrup that in the lamplight looked all too like blood. The glass panes bore smudged handprints, slender and streaked, as if something, had climbed in and out on desperate fingers. Then came the hum, not mechanical but organic, like the breath of something unseen. The record player's lullaby pitched upward, warping into a warped child's giggle that echoed against the empty stools. The lantern trembled, its flame flickering, revealing for a heartbeat the silhouette of a girl behind the counter, her hair matted and dripping, her dress stained a deep, congealed crimson. She held an ice cream scoop in one hand, its metal bowl glinting. The lullaby's final note drained away, leaving a heavy silence. For a moment, the only sound was the drip of melting syrup onto the cracked tile floor. Then, softly, a bell tinkled as the parlor's front door creaked open, though no breeze stirred and no living soul approached. The girl's silhouette dissolved as the lantern's glow steadied, but the air grew colder, each breath misting before him like ghosts exhaled into the room. Puddles of syrup pooled around the base of the counter, rippling as though something had just stepped through them. Alan's fingers tingled against the collar of his coat, an unbidden awareness that he was not alone. From somewhere behind the display cases came a soft scrape, like metal against tile. His flashlight beam danced across the walls, catching fleeting reflections in the glass. The faint outline of a handprint smeared in red, suspended in time. A single cone lay toppled on its side, its vanilla swirl stained a deep, bruised purple. He knelt, tracing the sticky trail with his fingertip, and recoiled as the syrup felt warm, almost pulsing under his touch. The lullaby returned, faint at first, then swelling until it filled every corner of the parlor. The warped vinyl squealed against the needle, and the child's giggle slithered into his ears. Alan rose on shaking legs and backed toward the door, but the bell did not tinkle again, and the door would not budge. The walls itself seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting in time with the music. In the far mirror above the counter, Alan's reflection wavered. Behind him, the image of the ice cream girl appeared, her head tilted at an impossible angle, eyes gleaming like polished black beads. She pressed a palm against the glass, and the surface rippled outward like water disturbed by a stone. He felt the chill of her gaze pierce his spine. The record sputtered, the lullaby warping to a single drawn-out note that held on the air far too long. Then, the whisper, soft and intimate, a voice so close it felt as though it curled around his ear. "Play with me, forever." Silence slammed into the parlor like a guillotine. The lantern extinguished, plunging him into darkness. Only the fading echo of that lullaby remained, promising that the ice cream girls' game had only just begun. It began, officially, with the vanishing of a local girl named Ellie Mendez. She was 17, bright, chatty, and just reckless enough to walk home alone after her evening shift at the library. That night, Elmore's usual drizzle turned to a steady downpour, the streets slick and glowing under sickly yellow street lights. She was seen last at SugarDrop's ice cream parlor, a quaint little place tucked between an abandoned toy store and a florist that hadn't opened in weeks. Ellie entered around 11:38 p.m., caught on a single blurry security camera mounted across the street. Umbrella in one hand, school bag slung over her shoulder, she hesitated at the door. A faint blue light pulsed from within. She stepped inside. She never stepped out again. The next morning, the parlor was found exactly as it had been hours before. Open, lights still faintly glowing, the soft lullaby looping on the record player. Her umbrella leaned against the booth. Her phone was tucked into the side pocket of her bag on the counter. And next to it, placed with chilling care, was a perfect swirl of strawberry ice cream in a waffle cone. Still cold, still intact, except for the red trail. It ran along the edge of the counter and dripped slowly onto the floor, a single winding ribbon of something thick and too dark to be syrup. The officers on scene assumed at first it was a prank, but the cone was tested. No fingerprints, no trace of Ellie's DNA. Nothing, in fact, to suggest anyone had ever touched it at all. They dusted the store, scoured it for prints, for signs of struggle. But there was nothing. Not a chair out of place, not a scuff on the tiles, nothing broken, nothing screamed, just the cone and the whisper. That part was left out of the police report. But the rookie officer who entered first, he told the story once after several drinks, eyes wide and unblinking. He said as he stepped toward the counter, the store got colder. He could see his own breath curl like smoke. And then he heard it, a girl humming from beneath the floorboards. That officer never returned to the force. Some say he still hears the song when it rains. The town barely reacted. Ellie's name appeared in the paper. Her mother cried on local news. But time moved on. Rain fell, and SugarDrops stayed open. Always open, even when it shouldn't be. 3 weeks after Ellie's disappearance, another patron went missing, this time an older man named Joseph Rankin. Retired, quiet, barely spoke to anyone in town. No known enemies. But he had a sweet tooth. Witnesses saw him enter SugarDrops late at night during a thunderstorm. He didn't come out. By then, rumors were spreading that the parlor was cursed, that it played music only children could hear, that the ice cream never melted no matter how long it sat, that the girl behind the counter wasn't a girl at all. Still, the shop remained untouched by law. Officially, it was just a string of coincidences, until the footage surfaced. It came from a nearby bookstore's CCTV, grainy black and white, distorted by rain, but it captured the front window of SugarDrops. At exactly 12:03 a.m., the footage showed a blurred figure pressing against the glass from inside, banging weakly with one palm, the outline flickering like bad signal. The light behind him flickered in time with the record's lullaby, barely audible on the audio feed. And then, from within the shop, another figure stepped forward. Tall, unnaturally thin, arms too long, dragging something behind it, something metal, like a scoop or a ladle. The figure raised one hand and touched the glass exactly where the other had pressed his palm, as if mocking him. A split second later, the feed glitched, horizontal lines tearing through the image, and when the screen stabilized, Joseph Rankin was gone. No footsteps, no exit, just gone. That night, the officers entered the shop again, this time in pairs. The same cone was waiting. Perfect swirl, pristine, this time chocolate chip, placed in the exact center of the counter. Beside it, Joseph's keys, still warm. But there was something else. On the wall behind the register, barely visible in the peeling pastel paint, was a stain shaped like a melting face. Long eyes, a drooping mouth, distorted as if it had been screaming. When an officer approached, the room's temperature dropped by 6 degrees in under 10 seconds. The chocolate chip cone began to melt, the syrup running red. The video, of course, disappeared. Corrupted. Unusable. Just static now. They tried to recover it, but no technician could get past the second frame. The hard drive eventually caught fire during a lab analysis. The cause, still unknown. And on the scorched remains of the melted cone's napkin, someone had scrawled in a shaky hand, "She's inside the cold." The first and only person to survive an encounter inside SugarDrop's was 16-year-old Naomi Kemp, who vanished for 2 nights before being found by a gas station worker, staggering barefoot and frostbitten beneath a broken umbrella. Her skin was pale blue, lips cracked and eyes wide with the kind of terror that doesn't fade with time. They took her to Elmore General, where she lay silent for hours, shivering beneath heated blankets, though her core temperature remained dangerously low. When she finally spoke, it was in fragments, whispers, like she was still afraid the walls could hear. But one sentence was perfectly clear. "I heard the ice cream girl singing, and I followed her into the freezer." Police dismissed it as trauma-induced hallucination, but the details Naomi gave were specific, too specific to ignore. She described the parlor exactly as investigators had found it. The looped lullaby, the unmelting cone, the humming from the floorboards. She said she'd seen Carrie, the girl who ran the shop. "She didn't walk," Naomi whispered. "She glided, like the floor moved for her." Inside the freezer, Naomi said, "Time bent. I think I was in there for days, but the clock never changed." She described dozens of frozen shapes hanging from the ceiling like slabs of meat, each wrapped in dripping pastel cloth, blankets soaked with something far darker than ice cream. "They were humming," Naomi said. "Their mouths didn't move, but I heard them humming her song." She swore Carrie spoke to her, whispered in her ear as she passed through the rows of frozen bodies. "She told me they were all birthday presents, but I was early. I wasn't supposed to be there yet." Naomi claimed she saw her own name stitched into a cloth tag on one of the bodies, but when she blinked, it was gone. She escaped only when the power flickered and the freezer door creaked open for a few seconds. "I didn't run," she said. "I crawled. I didn't want her to hear me breathing." No one believed her. Not the doctors, not the town. They labeled it a breakdown. Her parents moved shortly after. But the photos from the hospital's security cam showed Naomi wrapped in a child's birthday tablecloth from SugarDrop's. The same color and pattern never sold in stores, printed with the words, "Celebrate forever." She's never spoken publicly again. But in the quiet, frost-bitten corners of her memory, the lullaby still loops. The ice cream girl's song never really leaves you. Long before SugarDrops became a pastel nightmare of vanishing customers and whispered lullabies, it had a different name. The town records show the building originally opened in 1959 as Foster's Creamery, a family-run ice cream shop known for its hand-churned flavors and impossibly cold freezers. It was run by the Foster sisters, twins named Abigail and Carrie. Yes, Carrie, the same name whispered by Naomi in her frozen days, the same name now scribbled on the back of police reports in red pen, often followed by question marks and the word deceased. You see, Carrie Foster died in 1963. The official report lists it as a freezer accident. Abigail claimed her sister wandered into the industrial walk-in unit during a thunderstorm and became trapped when the locking mechanism failed. By the time Abigail found her, the door had iced shut. Carrie's body was discovered 3 days later, frozen solid, one hand pressed against the glass, as if begging. Her face was contorted in terror. Her other hand clutched a melted birthday cone. She was 8 years old. The shop closed for a time. Abigail was never charged, deemed emotionally unfit for trial. But the townspeople whispered that it was jealousy, that Abigail had always been envious of her twin's beauty, or charm, or something darker. Some say Abigail was heard speaking to herself long after the shop closed, talking to Carrie like she was still there. Eventually, the property changed hands. Years passed, but every owner who attempted to reopen the parlor under any name met tragedy. One fell through the stairs and snapped his neck. Another went missing entirely, leaving his keys and shoes just outside the walk-in freezer. The blueprints were altered, papers lost. But the freezer, that stayed, untouched, unchanged, always humming, always just a little too cold. Then, in 2009, someone rebranded it, painted the walls pink, installed new lights, changed the sign to SugarDrops. No one remembers who owned it. The permits vanished. There's no public record of the reopening. But the parlor was suddenly open again, staffed by a smiling young girl with pigtails and pale skin, always behind the counter, always humming that same warped lullaby. She called herself Carrie. When asked about the name, she'd simply smile and say, "It's a family tradition." It was Detective Julian Maris who first noticed the dates. By then, 3 more people had gone missing, each one with no clear connection. Different ages, jobs, lives. The only similarity? They all vanished within the walls of SugarDrops. But Julian, a skeptic by nature and a man with a keen eye for patterns, dug deeper. He made a chart of the victims. Names, dates, weather, witnesses. At first, nothing made sense. The victims had no mutual acquaintances, no shared history, no overlapping locations except for one, the ice cream parlor. Then Julian added birth dates, and everything snapped into place. Each victim, Ellie, Joseph, Naomi's near brush, even the man who disappeared before the shop rebranded, had the same birthday, July 15th. Different years, same day. He verified it again and again. Went digging through archived missing persons reports from decades ago. More names emerged, kids from as far back as 1965 who disappeared on that exact date, all last seen near or inside Foster's Creamery. Dozens of them, all born on July 15th, Carrie's birthday. Julian's hands shook as he circled the date for the 20th time. It wasn't random. It was ritual. A pattern hidden in ice cream and shadows. Someone, was hunting those who shared her day, pulling them back into the parlor like moths to a flame that only they could see. He dug up a newspaper from 1963, the year Carrie died. In the obituary, her twin Abigail had written, "She was my light, born in the middle of summer, gone before she could ever celebrate her birthday again. Every July 15th feels like a crime against nature. And beside the paper clipping, scrawled in red ink, "I'll celebrate for her. I'll find them all." That same quote was found on the back of a receipt in SugarDrops just last week. It wasn't just murder anymore. It was obsession. A memory turned ritual. A girl, frozen in time, forever celebrating a birthday she was never allowed to live through by taking others who shared the date and pulling them into her cold, sweet afterlife. Julian sealed his files, took time off the force. He hasn't spoken publicly since. But sometimes he parks across from the parlor at night, just watching. And if you ask him what he's waiting for, he only answers with a question. "Do you know your birthday?" It started as a hum, barely audible, almost forgettable. But once you noticed it, it was impossible to unhear. The parlor had an old wall-mounted speaker, dusty and cracked, sitting high above the counter like a forgotten relic. It was supposed to be disconnected, just a decoration, part of the retro charm. But when employees tried to remove it, the wiring ran impossibly deep, coiled through the walls like veins. Electricians said it shouldn't even be powered. And yet, every night, just past midnight, it turned on. Not with music. Not at first. It was a girl's voice. Software childlike. Singing a lullaby that didn't exist anywhere on record. No lyrics. Just a series of unsettling hums, like the echo of a memory not your own. At first it lasted minutes, then hours. Sometimes it would skip like a broken record, looping a single note so precisely it could grind into your skull. One manager, a man named Lewis Grant, recorded the audio on his phone during a double shift. The next day, he played it back for his wife. She collapsed after 30 seconds, weeping uncontrollably. When he asked what she heard, she said, "It was my sister. She died when we were kids." That song, it was hers. Others heard different things. A missing cousin, a long-dead mother, a childhood memory no one else should have known. The speaker didn't just hum, it remembered. Julian Maris investigated the speaker himself. When he stood under it, it remained silent. But when he left the room, the staff claimed it crackled back to life. Eventually, he left a recorder overnight, hidden inside the cone freezer. What came back was nearly 2 hours of sound, not just the lullaby this time, but a conversation. A child's voice, clear and sweet. "Do you remember the snow?" An older voice, distant, shaky. "Carrie?" A pause, then laughter. A high, echoing giggle that rose in pitch until the file corrupted itself, bursting into static. Julian sent the tape to a sound engineer, but the results came back with one chilling note. This was not recorded in a parlor. The reverberation suggests it was recorded in a metal box or a freezer. The speaker remains untouched, still humming, still waiting. Some say it isn't a speaker at all, just a mouth through which the past still speaks. The final descent into SugarDrop's freezer was never meant to happen. It wasn't part of any investigation, not sanctioned by police, not written in any official report. But after 5 more people went missing that summer, each one born on July 15th, someone had to go in. And Julian Maris didn't care if he came out. He entered just past midnight. Rain fell in heavy sheets, and the parlor was open again, lights warm and inviting, that familiar scent of sugar and something faintly rotten clinging to the walls. The lullaby hummed softly from the wall speaker, slower now, like a record spinning underwater. Julian stepped behind the counter. The freezer door stood half open, breathing fog into the air like a slumbering beast. No one was visible inside, just rows of hanging metal hooks and an eerie blue light that pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. He whispered, "Carrie," and the door slammed shut behind him. Instantly, the temperature plummeted. Ice coated the walls, spreading like veins. Julian's breath came in ragged clouds as he moved deeper, flashlight flickering. On either side of the corridor, frozen forms hung, suspended from the ceiling by twisted strands of birthday ribbon. Cloth-wrapped, featureless. He passed them one by one. Ellie Mendez, Joseph Rankin, Naomi Kemp. The last tag stopped him cold. Julian Maris. He hadn't even turned 40 yet. His birthday? July 15th. Then, behind him, a soft crack of ice. He spun, and there she was. Carrie. Her dress was white now, frilled with pastel edges. Her skin shimmered with frost, her hair floating in the cold like it moved underwater. Her eyes were black, endless, and in her hand she held a single scoop, glinting, jagged, dripping red. "Did you come to celebrate?" she asked sweetly. "You missed your party last year." Julian raised the crowbar from his belt. "Let them go." She tilted her head. "I already gave them what they wanted. They were lonely. So was I." Her smile widened. "And now I'll give you your wish too. I'll make it so you never have to leave." He swung. The crowbar passed through her like mist, hitting nothing but cold air. The freezer groaned. The walls began to shudder and contract as if the very room was breathing in reverse. The ice grew up his legs. Carrie's song resumed. Louder now, layered with whispers of the others. A lullaby of the dead. Julian screamed, tried to move, but his legs locked in place. His flashlight dropped, its beam flickering across the floor just long enough to reveal what was beneath the frost. Dozens of footprints, all child-sized, walking in circles. And then Carrie stepped forward. She placed the scoop gently at his feet. "Happy birthday," she whispered, and the freezer light snapped to black. They never found Julian, only his crowbar and a cone. Perfect swirl, blueberry, still frozen. Section 9, Epilogue, Frost-bitten farewell. The parlor is quiet now. Windows shuttered, lights off. The front door chained shut with an old wooden sign that reads, "Closed for private party." It's been months since anyone last saw someone enter SugarDrop's. Some say the parlor burned down in an electrical fire. But if you walk past 3rd and Holloway after midnight, you'll still hear it. The faint sound of a warped lullaby drifting from behind the boarded windows. The ones who vanished are still there. Not dead, not alive, just cold. Suspended in time, held in Carrie's embrace forever. They say if you press your ear to the freezer door on the night of your birthday, you'll hear your name in the song. And if you answer, she'll open the door, and you'll never leave again.